Hello, it's time again for SM Sunday, which means nothing to you if you're not watching this on the day it came out, because it might not be Sunday. So I'm working on the SM today, as you can see. My plan is to try and get the steering rack off. Yes, that is what I want to do, because the steering rack goes across the top of the gearbox here and is preventing the engine and gearbox from coming out, which is what I need to do next. I need to get the engine and gearbox out. And to do that, I need to remove this. Now, I have never removed a steering rack on a Citroen SM before. In fact, I've only ever removed two Citroen DS racks, which are similar-ish, but they have one key difference in that they do not have Diravi. This has Diravi. And what is Diravi, you might be asking? And if you're not, could you please ask it so this video flows properly? Thank you. Diravi is that thing there, basically, this unit on the end. So the steering column comes through from the cabin, and it looks like it passes like really close to the exhaust manifold, which is completely normal. Though the sphere shouldn't normally be there, by the way. I've taken it off. So basically, yes, that is the Diravi unit, and I have to figure out which pipes I have to disconnect, which pipes I can leave on, and how to remove this entire thing, because the steering on an SM is kind of similar to a DS's, but that means it's still completely different to everything else. So why does this car have Diravi? Why can't it just be normal, like a Ford Cortina? Why does it have to be complicated? Well, Diravi is, like most things on a Citroen of this era, there is logic and reason behind why it has it. And it starts here. That's the wheel hub, which won't turn because the brakes are seized. But don't worry about that. The brakes are inboard, they're not on there. And basically, Diravi is there because this car has something called center point geometry. Now, I can't put the phone directly above the wheel hub to show you that because I haven't got the tripod for it, basically. But what you need to know is that the wheel has an offset of 0. That means that the mating face that goes against the wheel hub there is smack bang in the center of the wheel. And that means this pivot point here and the one underneath and this one are also smack bang in the center of the wheel. So when you turn the steering like that, there is no scrub radius at all. It's completely in the middle. I'm trying to hold it there, but I'm not going to be able to turn the steering at the same time because I'm not Stretch Armstrong. But yeah, all the pivot points here, here, and underneath are all in exactly the same plane this way, which is good and bad in equal measure depending on what you're trying to do. The reason it's good and bad is that having center point geometry like this does give you some advantages, but it also gives you some disadvantages. The advantages it gives you are stability. Straight line stability. You can drive this car through a flood, if you like, or something else, like flowing on the road. It would probably just be a flood, but it wouldn't be lava. You could hit one of those in this car, and it will not deflect. It won't deviate because there's no scrub radius. Scrub radius is where the pivot point here and the mating face of the wheel, the offset of the wheel, the center point of the wheel, I should say, the point the wheel bolts on with, are not on the same point. They're apart, and the further apart they are, the bigger scrub radius you have, because what happens then is what's happening on that side of the car and what's happening on this side of the car end up being slightly different. Now, that is not desirable if you're trying to drive through floods or lava, but it is good for steering feel. It's good for steering feel because there's a weight difference between the two, so it's giving you feedback. You can feel what's going on through the steering wheel. And it's also good for self-centering because one is trying to pull back harder than the other. On a center point car like this, there's not really any well, there's no self-centering. Like, you could literally turn the steering wheel like that and then go around a roundabout and then let go of the steering wheel and you'll go around it forever. So what Citroen did is come up with a way to center it again. They wanted to keep the center point geometry because of the advantages of it, because they had a front-wheel drive car that had, well, potential to do about 140 miles an hour. Not this one, obviously, because it's an auto, but SMs, they reckon they could do about 140, maybe just under, but it was the fastest front-wheel drive car of the day. So there were some concerns, if you like, about torque steer, straight line stability, things like that. Because if you've got scrub radius and you give it a bootful, it pulls like this. And manufacturers try to find ways to mitigate that while keeping scrub radius because they want feedback. Generally, cars that are fast, cars that pull hard, are performance cars. So you want that feedback, but you also don't want the torque steer. And they come up with ways of doing it. Floating knuckles are one of the ways they try to combat that. Well, Citroen thought, no, we want absolute stability, but with all the performance. So we must have both. And that's where Diravi comes in. You're thinking, hang on, does the Citroen DS not have centre point steering geometry? But that doesn't have Diravi, is that correct? Yes, it is correct. It's completely correct. The Citroen DS has centre point geometry. In fact, the Citroen DS has that suspension. That is DS suspension. It's just they're fitted the other way around. And it doesn't have Diravi. But there are two crucial reasons why it doesn't have Diravi. The first one is that it's not a very fast car. It's not going to be pushing 130, 135 mile an hour. The engine in a DS is old school. They are made more for normal, gentle day-to-day driving. And the other reason it didn't have Diravi is it did still have a method of artificial self-centering on the steering. It just wasn't as complex as that. Basically, what the DS had on the bottom of the steering column as it came out the bulkhead is a heart-shaped cam on the bottom of the shaft. When that went into the rack, there was a little sprung-loaded arm with a roller bearing on it, which pushed down on the cam. And the cam being heart-shaped meant that when it hit the centre, it didn't want to deviate. It tried to... Well, I can't make a heart shape with my hand. Ow! It wouldn't deviate. It tried to get the roller bearing into that divot in the middle and stay there. And then you could overcome it with the steering. But of course, if you let go, it will try and pull it back to the middle. But that only really worked if it went beyond... It didn't work, sorry, if it went beyond a certain point. And also with the DS, you could do more than one turn each way. Which means, in theory, if you did a complete turn, it'll try to keep you going in that direction. But it wasn't particularly strong, and it was there really to give you some stability in a straight line. So you're driving down the motorway, if you let go of the steering wheel, it's not going to go like that, like a trolley. And it worked, to be fair. You don't speak to DS owners and hear them ever complain that the car was unstable. They're not. They're perfectly stable, and the system they came up with works well. But they had to put it in there because they needed the stability. They didn't have to engineer feedback. They didn't have to engineer it weighting up at speed because no one thought of the DS as a kind of sports car. Now, some people, for some reason, think of these as sports cars. I really wouldn't. The engine is a bit of a sports car engine, but it's a big, soft, boaty cruiser, but one that is extremely light on its feet and makes it feel a lot smaller and lighter than it is. That's what I love about it. Not that I've ever driven one, so ignore me. I could be talking complete crap, but that's the vibe I get from them. And with these cars, Citroen needed to make it... Well, they basically needed to do what they did with the DS, but more. And that's what they did. So instead of having a cam in the column with a little sprung-loaded bearing on it, it has a kind of cam inside that unit there with a plunger and hydraulic pressure pushes against the steering. The difference with that is that if the car's not moving, it can have next to no pressure pushing against it, keeping it in the centre. And the faster the car goes, the more it can increase the pressure and force the steering to stay in the middle. So that's why the steering weights up. The faster you go, the heavier the steering gets. It's not actually getting heavier. It's the plunger is pushing on the steering column harder the faster you go. And that's why they go back to the centre. That's why they return to centre when you're parked up, because the plunger is forcing it to go back to the centre. It's also the reason, I think, I could be wrong, but I think Citroen haven't necessarily just gone with the really quick rack steering, because on these cars, it is less than one turn for full lock. So lock to lock is less than 2 turns. I think, personally speaking, they would have gone for quite a quick ratio anyway, but if they'd gone for more than 1 turn, the Diravi would have got confused and tried to pull it. I think, I mean, that's just to me, they can make the cam shaped so that it doesn't need to do a complete revolution. I could be wrong, but I'm looking at this thinking, that sure as hell makes it a lot easier to engineer that if it doesn't have to do 1 full turn. because if you do more than one turn, that gets quite complicated. Could be wrong, but yeah, that's basically what it does. So it's not artificial steering feel, because I've never driven one, as I say, but I'm pretty sure there is no steering feel with these cars, but it's artificial steering weight, and combined with the centre point steering and, you know, and the, what do they call it in the UK? Was it Vari Power? I think it was called Speed Feel in the US. But, you know, combined with the centre point and that, it means that you've got a really, really, really stable straight line car. I'm so looking forward to hitting motorways in this and driving with one finger on the wheel at the bottom like that. I think it'll be the best car at doing that. You also have to be careful if you do that, because you could... So as I say, I've never taken one of these racks out before. I have taken DS racks out. This is a similar rack to a DS one. It's very similar from the actual rack point of view, but the Diravi bit on the end of it, yeah, I'm not so sure. There are obviously things I need to do to make sure that everything is still lined up, because what I don't want is to throw the alignment out. Because if I throw the alignment out, I've got no starting point for putting it back in. I don't want to throw the alignment out because I don't want to have the car automatically try to push itself one way if I get it wrong. So I'm hoping also that the rack is okay. I don't know. I've no idea. It'd be an expensive thing to get rebuilt. Or I might be able to do it myself, but I think that's the kind of thing that you need to farm out to experience. Someone with the equipment to ream bores and stuff. So, yeah. Right, well, I'm going to try and get the rack out. Right, so the first thing I'm going to try and do, I've removed a couple of extra bits since we started. I've also lost a fixing here, as in it's sheared off, so I've updated my wall. And yeah, I'm just going to try and remove the brace that runs across the top here. I have started all these off. This brace, I mean, you wouldn't drive down the road with this not fitted, I don't think, because I'm pretty sure looking at this, it's trying to create a kind of box around the front, so when you're going over bumps and things, it doesn't try and force the two tops of the chassis rails together. But yeah, I mean, I have to take it out. There's no other way around it. Right, so in theory, yes, there are some bits I don't want to like restore. I want to keep them as original, and I think that one might be one of them. I think clean that up and that will look. So what I'm going to have to do is remove, I think, looking at this, because I've got pipe work and things under here, I think I'm going to have to take these tie rods off. And if I remember rightly from the DS I did last, I think I can just remove the pinch bolts up here for these. These are called relays, if I remember rightly. I can remove the pinch bolts to hold this arm to the relay on both sides, and that centre bolt there, and I think that whole assembly will come off, and it'll give me a bit more access to these pipes. Now some of these pipes I'm going to have to remove, and some of them I won't, because some of them go like that one there, that return goes, oh no, we'll have to remove that one. Which one is it? That one. That return there goes up to this bundle of returns up here, which is an absolute bloody hornet's nest. Surely there was a neater way of doing that. Now, I think, I could be wrong. I'm trying to figure out where the main feed comes in. I don't think it's that. I didn't... Where's the DS rack? There was... Hang on. I've got the DS rack here. Yeah, no, see that pipe work there, that stays on because that's come from the, in theory, that comes from the, I'm going to guess that would come from the Diravi unit. But I can't, God, you can't even see it. I'm pretty sure it does. That's just a return. There's one here, which goes, now that goes to, okay, yeah, so that one would have to come off. That goes down to one of the T-junctions down there, which the other end from the valve that went to the gearbox that controls the flow. So that one does come off. But then trying to get it out without wrecking it. God, you can't see anything. It's harder than the DS one. The DS one's actually not too bad. You have to get a radiator out on the DS because it sits under the radiator, weirdly enough. Did I undo that bolt? Or did I take these out? Maybe I should just take those out. Oh, they're captive. Oh, if they're captive, I'll do those. Yeah, it's got a locking tab at the top. Yeah, I might as well do it that way. Oh, these weren't even tight. They were, I think they're just literally like left loose and then, or done up most of the way and then pinned over with this little thing at the top here, which was a bit rusty, to stop them coming undone. This one is a bit on the corroded side, but the other ones come straight out. There we go. So in theory, there we go. There we go. Now the rack is disconnected from the wheels. I'm so nervous about this rack being knackered because it's just going to be hella expensive if it is. So that's that. What I've also done is I've marked the relays relative to the arms so I know what kind of orientation they go in. I mean, it might not matter, to be honest. It might not be crucial, but I thought, let's not muck about. God, the amount of fixings that are just coming off, it's unbelievable. Everything is such good quality, all the bolts, all the fixings, all the metal used. Is the other one going to do the same? Yes, it has. It might just... Yeah, look. There you go. Straight off. That ball joint's not too bad either. Bit of play in it. Yeah, bit of play in it. Not too bad though. G. I don't need to mark it. Left and right. Gauche. Which is left in French, I think. And the other one should have a D on it. Yes, it does. The other one has the D. There we go. So the rack is held in with these clamps here. And the rack body has these sort of splines all the way down it. So you can have the whole rack mounted this way or the other. What I'm going to do is measure from here to here and have that as a fixed measurement before I go taking anything apart, so I know how far over the thing was mounted when it was new or when it was last used. And then I've got to figure out which of all these lines can stay and which ones can go. That one's got to come off. That's a hydraulic return. That's a supply, that's a return, but that one goes up to there. So that doesn't need to come off. That one goes to the rack, so that doesn't need to come off. So it's basically that bit. That's it. There you go. That lot all goes on the rack. So I better mark that, hadn't I? And then, yeah, it's just a case of figuring out where the other supply lines are. So that's definitely one. No. One, two. I think I'll probably just undo those two, then unbolt the rack and lift it a bit and see if I can tell where the rest of it is. I think it's going to be the easiest way to do it. Right, so with my French ruler, I bought this in France because look, that side, centimetres. That side, centimetres. Yeah, with this, it is 99. Oh, it's about 99.2, but let's not get hung up on decimals. 99 millimeters. Now, I'm not going to write this down. I'm going to leave it in the video, and then future me will have to go and find the video to try and remember what that was. Right, so most of this is undone now. And basically, I'm not convinced. I mean, I've cleaned some of the body away where the pipes were connected, so I shouldn't be getting any detritus falling in there, but I will put some caps in there when it's off the car. But I'm not convinced that this is going to come straight off. I think, from what I can make out, I think the Diravi unit has a different feed to the rack. I could be wrong. I could be completely wrong. There's the clamp, look. Everything is just so beautifully machined. I'm assuming that there's going to be something getting in the way, but I can't see what it is at the moment. And without knowing any more about them, and it's not like you can just get a Haynes manual. There we go. The other problem, I've got to get the rack off before I can get the handbrake cable out as well, and I can't take this off until the handbrake cable's out, and that's going to be a pain to do as well, because I know they look difficult. Some people make special tools. So, yeah, I've undone the column to the pinion, if you like, driver unit. I've undone that. I haven't been able to mark it. I wanted to mark it, but I can't get in there, realistically, and it's covered in oil. Yeah, so I'm just going to have to count it one way and count it back the other way and reset it. So, yeah, let's just see. Might need a little persuasion. Let's go with that. So I'm just intrigued to know what I've missed here. Oh. No way, really? That's it? Huh. Okay. And now there is a lot better access to that. Much better access. Much better access. What? No, that'll do. Just much. Okay, so I'm looking at the engine bay since the rack's come out. And do you remember I had the problem with the left-hand wheel? Didn't want to rotate. Well, I can demonstrate that. Rotation. No rotation. Well, I was worried it was something to do with the diff. Originally, I didn't know that it was just this side. I just knew the car was hard to push. Now, I'm feeling a bit better about it because I'm looking at that brake disc there. If I put the light on. Crusty, not doing much. Trying to do much. And then if I look at the angle of the... Because you've got the two separate calipers here. You've got the main caliper there, which looks like it's come off an aircraft. It's massive. That's rigid bolted to the end of the diff, or side of the diff. And then you've got a separate handbrake caliper up here, which is actually pretty similar to the one on the back of a Jag, from what, as much as I can tell. Now, if I look at the springs and the two arms there, that's the side that works okay. That's the side that doesn't. You can see how it's all wonky and bound up. So that suggests to me that the caliper is seized, which is going to make it harder to take it apart. A lot of people who take these calipers apart, they have a special tool that compresses the spring, takes the tension off the cable. I don't have that. And I was looking to see whether a valve spring compressor could be adapted to fit it, but I don't think it can. So I think it's going to be bodging and hoping. That's my best bet. So I'm wondering if... that's just enough to take a bit of weight off the cable. No. Not even slightly. The other thing I could try and do is just undo the bolts that hold the caliper, the pads in, and just beat one of the pads out, because then that should make life a little bit easier. I don't think I'll be able to take enough off this one. Oh yeah, see that one moves. Yeah, that's moved and that's fully compressed. But, oh, I think the pads have delaminated, that's why. And if you can see down in there, The friction material was coming away from the backing plate. I mean, you could kind of understand it. It was parked outside for a long time. Now, I'm hoping these will just... I think this is just... I don't actually know how this thing comes apart, but I'm guessing this is just a lock nut. Oh, it is turning, that's good. Ah, there we go. That's a relief. That's good. So that means the diff is not seized on one side, which would have not made a lot of sense, but... So, I wonder if I can just pop the pads out. That would be the easiest way of getting the cable out of there. Obviously, when I've got to put a new one in, I'm going to have to make a tool, but what a weird shaped brake pad. What's holding it at the back? I can't see in there, that's the problem. No access. So that screw isn't part of the pad. On the Rover, no, not the Rover, the Jag back axles, I'm pretty sure the pads have got a threaded stud on them, which is what I thought this was, but it doesn't look like it is. So I could have pushed this much easier all those years back, is what you're telling me. Yeah, something's holding it in at the back. I just can't quite figure out what it is. Half tempted just to take the caliper off. There's only 2 bolts there by the look of it. Looks like 19mm. Is 19mm. Oh, there we go. This one's going to be tighter. At least if I take the caliper off, I can see how the pads are held in. Yeah. God, bloody hell. Meanwhile, people in OSMs are watching this going, that's not how you take them off. It looks like it might be. There we go. What are they held in with at that end then? Oh yeah, they weren't coming out. Will it move now? Yeah, there you go. Problem is, when I release this, it's going to go flying. Oh, that's how they come out. Like a, yeah, it's DS, isn't it? So it locks onto this pad thing at the back. So, yeah, with disc in there, there ain't no way they're coming off. Well, I can refurb those calipers, I think. Oh, I can see why you need the spring compressor. You know, I'm going to see what the minimum wear thickness is on these discs, but there's a chance they can just be refaced and used again. There's no lip on them at all. That'd be good, wouldn't it? Obviously, most of that went on the floor. There we go. Ooh, that's a bit... Oh, nice. It's got a sealant around it, so someone's had fun sealing that before. Either that or they knew it had a hole in it. So that's the... Right, so a little bit of time has passed and a bit more progress made. It looks a mess, doesn't it? But yeah, so there's been some Right, there's been some good developments actually. Where's that development gone? Where did I put that development so you could see it? Oh, it's there. It just came undone. I did not expect that. So yeah, there's that development. So the rack is out, obviously you saw that. Gear change cable is this. That's out, and that is quite a nifty little design actually. It's just a sort of sleeve with a spring-loaded circlip that engages on that plunger to shift that adjuster in and out. The switch that I highlighted the other day that I had no idea what it was, I engaged my brain and realised it was the inhibitor switch. So that is out and is there. The brakes are disconnected from the car, so that T-piece down there, that's where the brakes connect to the body. Obviously the handbrake's off. We know that cable there is the kick down cable. Don't need to remove that. Do you know, it's actually getting dangerously close at the front here. The only thing really left is these. I'm supposed to be being sent a electric impact gun to test. Someone has offered to send one for review, and I think, well, I've got some stuff it can do. Not that it's going to work very hard to do it, because all the bolts on this car seem to come undone. That's going to be laughing at me next time. But it hasn't arrived, because they use Amazon to deliver things. So, God knows where it is. Probably Thailand or something, or could be in Belgium, Berlin, the States. It could be anywhere. It's probably in someone's house, though, isn't it? Probably in the back of someone's car. So, yeah, basically, once I've got those undone, I think that is everything there done. Obviously, this brace needs to come out, but that brace, which is mounted in many places, down there and under there, that brace is part of the gearbox mount, so that will just come off with the gearbox. In fact, I might put an extra like a ratchet strap round here, around the engine crane, because that engine crane, when it goes in, is going to have to go a long way across. It's going to have to pick up these eyelets. It's got an eyelet at the back there. Has it got one on the other side? No. Not entirely sure what you're supposed to do there. I don't know if that's missing or if it's not supposed to have one. But the thing I noticed when I was working on it earlier is the engine mounts are here. They're like right at the front of... They're at one end of the engine. So it's like a Beetle in reverse, isn't it? The gearbox has taken most of the weight here, I think. I mean, that probably is where the... Well, I expect the engine probably is lighter than that gearbox. With the brakes and everything on it, it probably is. I think those engines are supposed to be about 140 kilos. They're lightweight. But yeah, that's the strange thing. Unless there's another mount behind it that I have yet to discover, that's going to come and ruin my day. But I don't think there is. So yeah, I've got the exhaust disconnected that side. You can just see the manifold now that I've taken out that. There you go, it's the American spec manifold with the resonance chamber on it, and then there's this. So that's something to do with the emissions thing. I think it's like a fresh air. I think they used to inject oxygen into the exhaust stream somewhere, thinking that was going to do something. I hope to put Euro manifolds on it. Obviously, budget will determine whether I do or not, but I would like to put Euro manifolds on, which are just 3-branch versions of those. I mean, those do look stainless. I think they look quite good quality, but obviously they're quite restrictive. And probably make it a little bit quieter, and I'd quite like to hear this thing sing. Yeah, so I've got the manifold undone that side, the downpipe on that side, the bolt is spinning, and it's a bit corroded, so I'm going to have to get underneath to do that once. I'll do that next time. And the access isn't as good from the top because the steering column's in the way, but you can just see, you can't even see it, can you? It's down, no. Well, it's down there, down behind that mount. And then when I've done all that, basically it's just everything at the back. So you've got wiring for the cooling fan, heater hoses. You can see a couple there. I think that's what that is. Looks like it is. Obviously the throttle linkage. The linkage is nice and free moving, but the cable is not. That's the choke cable. And again, that is seized solid. These oil pipes here, they go into the back of the engine, so they can stay on the back of the engine. Basically, I'll just end up picking the thing up and walking it forward slightly and seeing what resists. I will crawl underneath it before I do, just to have a look at the back of the engine and see if I can see if I can spot anything that's going to be unhappy. But I think it's fair to say the next video on this, well, that'll probably do it for now. I'll pick it up again when, next time I'm in. I'll have a bit of a mess to clear up. I don't have time to do this now, so I need to get home and edit this so it gets out for Sunday. I'm probably not going to do another video of what I've been doing, because the rest of what I've got to do, other than these bolts here, which are just drive shaft bolts, if I get the impact gun, which I won't, but if I did get the impact gun, I'd show you, but I'm not going to get it, so I don't think it's going to be a problem. Everything else was right down the back of the engine, so you can't really see it anyway. So I think what I'll do is I'll busy myself, get it ready to pull it out. The next video we do will be engine crane, and then I can take it out and take the gearbox off and discover it's ruined and cry on camera. That'd be good, wouldn't it? Yeah, that's basically the plan. Well, the plan not to cry. I want to find out that it's good. But yeah, we know it's not seized, the engine. That's all I know so far. Yeah, and yeah, we'll pull the box off, put the engine up on the stand, got an engine stand there waiting for it, and see where we're at. I'm massively nervous about it, to be honest. And then after I've done that, when that's up on the stand and I've kind of just pulled the sump off, pulled the camshafts out probably, and seen if I can turn the engine over, then after that it'll be a case of pulling out the heavy parts of the interior. So the seats are really heavy, the bases they sit on are really heavy, the doors, but I would quite like to see if I can get the windows working first. So I might try putting 12 volts to the motors on the windows while the doors are on the car, just to, because then I can put the doors away with the windows down, save them getting damaged. I'll see if I can get the windscreen out. I mean, the windscreen is the way the windscreen's held in. There is a chance it will just fall out when I take all the trim off around it, apparently. But there's also a chance it won't. So, and I don't want to, because contrary to popular belief, it's not actually scratched. It's mint. So, actually, it's not mint. It's slightly delaminated. Where side was it? Oh, there. So, yeah, but it's good enough. Yeah, so basically, to take everything of weight out of the car. All the heavy stuff off it. Boot lid needs to come off it. And then when everything heavy is off, I need to get my rotisserie out of its boxes. I've owned it for over a year. And figure out how the hell I'm going to attach the front of the car to it. The back is pretty easy. I think the back can probably go on the bumper mounts, because they're directly on the chassis rails. But the front, I'm going to have to come up with something. I'm probably going to have to make some sort of like big square frame that goes around the outside of that. And picks up some of these bolts as well. So that's going to be a bloody ball ache, but one step at a time. It'll be engine out. So, yeah, next video will be the engine coming out. If I don't speak to you in the meantime, because it's Christmas and all that, have a nice one. And see you later.